Dr. Samira Hassan rubbed her tired eyes as she reviewed the latest cultural exchange data from the Valerian delegation. The holographic displays in her office at the International Space Research Institute cast a soft blue glow across her desk, illuminating the countless reports and analysis she'd been poring over for the past 12 hours. 3 years of studying the Valerians, and they still managed to surprise her. Their social structures were intricate, their technology advanced beyond human understanding in some areas, yet surprisingly simple in others. As Earth's leading xenoanthropologist, Samira had dedicated her life to understanding alien cultures, but the Valerians presented unique challenges. The gentle chime of her office door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called out, expecting one of her research assistants with the evening's data compilation. Instead, a tall, ethereal figure glided into the room. Lysandra, the Valerian cultural attaché, moved with the characteristic floating grace of her species. Her translucent skin shifted colors like aurora borealis, currently displaying shades of deep purple that indicated either great distress or profound reverence in Valerian culture. Dr. Hassan, Lysandra's voice resonated with multiple harmonics, a natural feature of Valerian speech that their translation devices couldn't fully capture. "I come seeking your assistance in a matter of utmost urgency." Samira straightened in her chair, immediately noting the unusual formality in Lysandra's tone. They had worked together for months, developing what Samira believed was a comfortable professional relationship. "Of course, Lysandra. Please, sit down." The Valerian remained standing, her four-fingered hands clasped tightly in front of her. "What I must ask of you goes beyond our professional capacity. It concerns the survival of not just myself, but potentially the future of both our species." A chill ran down Samira's spine. In all her years of xenocultural studies, she'd never heard a Valerian speak with such dire urgency. "I'm listening. I am experiencing what we call the resonance," Lysandra said, her skin rippling with waves of deep indigo. "It is a biological imperative that occurs once in a Valerian's lifetime. Without a compatible bondmate, my neural pathways will begin to deteriorate within days." Samira leaned forward, her researcher's mind already racing with questions. "A biological imperative? Like a mating drive?" "More complex," Lysandra's outer membrane flickered. "The resonance seeks genetic compatibility beyond our own species. It is how we evolve, how we adapt. And my resonance." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper, "has chosen you." The words hung in the air between them. Samira sat back, her mind struggling to process the implications. "Me? But that's impossible. We're completely different species." "Not as different as you might think," Lysandra moved closer, her membrane now pulsing with spots of golden light. "Your research into the similarities between our neural patterns was what first drew me to you. You understand things about my people that even we have forgotten." Samira stood, pacing her office as she thought. "Even if what you're saying is possible, there must be protocols, procedures. The diplomatic implications alone." "There is no time for protocols," Lysandra's voice took on an edge of desperation. "The resonance is already advancing. Within 5 days, the deterioration will begin. Within 10, it will be irreversible. What exactly would this bond entail?" Samira asked, her scientific curiosity warring with her sense of caution. "A neural link, allowing us to share thoughts, emotions, memories. Our biological processes would synchronize to some degree, but you would remain fundamentally human. The bond cannot be broken once formed, but it can expand, grow, evolve." A knock at the door made both women start. "Dr. Hassan," came the voice of Director Patel. "The Security Council is requesting your presence for an emergency meeting regarding the Valerian delegation." Lysandra's skin darkened to almost black. "They cannot know. If my government discovers I have initiated a resonance with a human, they will recall me immediately. The consequences would be severe." Samira looked between the door and the alien who had just upended her entire understanding of interspecies relations. "Give me a moment, Director," she called out. Then, lowering her voice, she turned to Lysandra. "I need time to think about this." "Time is the one thing we do not have," Lysandra said softly. "But I understand. I will return at midnight. If you consent to the bond, meet me in the xenobiology lab. If not—" Her skin rippled with waves of midnight blue. "Then I wish you well, Samira Hassan, and I thank you for showing me that humans are capable of understanding far more than my people believed possible." As Lysandra slipped out through the secondary door, Samira took a deep breath, straightened her jacket, and went to face the Security Council. Her mind raced with possibilities, implications, and one persistent thought: in all her years of studying alien cultures, she had never expected to be offered the chance to become part of one. The Security Council meeting proved to be even more tense than Samira had anticipated. Director Patel paced at the head of the conference table, his usual composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. The holographic displays showed various data streams, including recent energy signatures from the Valerian quarter of the Institute. "Our sensors detected unusual neural activity in their living quarters," Security Chief Reza Daller reported, his dark eyes fixed on Samira. "Given your expertise with Valerian biology, Dr. Hassan, we need your assessment of potential risks." Samira kept her expression neutral, though her heart raced. The neural activity had to be related to Lysandra's resonance. The Valerians are a highly advanced species with complex biological processes we don't fully understand. Without more specific data, I couldn't make any definitive claims. "That's precisely what concerns us," Dr. Victoria Rhodes, the head of xenobiology, interjected. 3 years of diplomatic relations, and we're still discovering fundamental aspects of their biology. Just last week, we found evidence of adaptive genetic capabilities we never suspected they possessed. Samira's tablet chimed with an urgent message. A quick glance showed it was from her research assistant, Raj Patel. "Dr. H, strange readings from Lab 7. Valerian biosignatures, but unlike anything we've recorded. Should I alert security?" She quickly typed back, "No. I'll handle it." Then, addressing the council, she said, "Perhaps we're being overly paranoid. The Valerians have been nothing but transparent in their dealings with us." "Transparent?" Chief Daller scoffed. "They didn't even tell us about their telepathic abilities until we discovered them by accident 6 months ago." "Cultural differences," Samira argued. "What we see as deception, they view as private matters not relevant to diplomatic relations." Director Patel raised his hand, silencing the brewing debate. "Dr. Hassan, you've spent more time with them than anyone else. Do you believe they pose any immediate threat to the Institute?" The weight of Lysandra's secret pressed against her conscience. "No," she said firmly. "But I do believe we're at a crucial point in our relations with them. How we handle the next few days could determine the future of human-Valerian cooperation." After the meeting, Samira hurried to Lab 7. She found Lysandra there, her skin now a pale, sickly green. The Valerian leaned against a research terminal, her usually perfect posture compromised. "The deterioration has begun," Lysandra said without preamble. "Earlier than expected. The proximity to you seems to have accelerated the process." Samira quickly locked the lab door and activated the privacy screens. "The Security Council knows something's happening. They've detected unusual neural activity. Then we have even less time than I thought." Lysandra straightened with visible effort. "Have you made your decision?" "I have questions first," Samira said. "Why didn't your people tell us about the resonance? About your ability to form these bonds?" "Because it has never happened with a non-Valerian before," Lysandra admitted. "The possibility was theoretical, discussed only in ancient texts. When I first felt the resonance focusing on you, I didn't believe it myself." A soft alert chimed on Samira's tablet. Chief Daller was requesting access to Lab 7 security feeds. She had minutes at most before they overrode her privacy protocols. If we do this, Samira said, her mind racing, what happens to your position here? To mine. The political fallout could destroy everything we've worked for. Lysandra's skin shifted to a deep, royal purple. Or it could prove what I've long suspected, that humans and Valerians are far more compatible than either side has been willing to acknowledge. Your research already suggests possible common ancestry, millions of years ago. This bond could provide concrete evidence. The lab security panel flashed red. Override sequence initiated. Time's up, Samira said. I need to know, is this just about survival for you? Or is there more? Lysandra moved closer, her membrane rippling with complex patterns of gold and purple. From the first day we met, I saw in you a mind that could bridge our worlds. You don't just study us, Samira Hassan. You understand us. The resonance chose you because I had already begun to see you as more than just another human researcher. The security panel beeped its final warning. In 30 seconds, the doors would open, and everything would change regardless of her choice. Samira looked at Lysandra, really looked at her. Beyond the alien features, she saw a brilliant mind, a dedicated diplomat, and someone who had chosen to trust her with not just her life, but the future of both their species. What do we do? Samira asked, her decision made. Place your hands on my membrane, Lysandra instructed, her voice gaining strength. The resonance will do the rest. As the security panel counted down its final seconds, Samira reached out. The moment her fingers touched Lysandra's shimmering surface, the world exploded into light and sensation. Colors she had never seen before flooded her vision. Thoughts and memories not her own cascaded through her mind. She felt Lysandra's presence, vast and ancient and beautiful, intertwining with her own consciousness. When Security Chief Daller and his team burst into the lab moments later, they found Dr. Samira Hassan and the Valerian diplomat standing together, surrounded by a nimbus of shifting light that defied all scientific explanation. The bond was formed. There was no going back. The aftermath of the bonding was immediate and overwhelming. Samira found herself experiencing sensations she had no words for, colors beyond the human visual spectrum, and an awareness of Lysandra's presence that defied scientific explanation. But they had no time to explore these new sensations, the Institute was in chaos. This is a breach of every protocol we have. Director Patel's voice boomed through the quarantine chamber where Samira and Lysandra were being held. Through their new bond, Samira could feel Lysandra's mixture of concern and quiet amusement at the human's predictable reaction. Dr. Rhodes hovered nearby with her scanning equipment, her excitement barely contained despite the situation. The neural synchronization is unlike anything we've ever seen. Their brainwave patterns are harmonizing in ways that should be impossible between different species. Security Chief Daller stood by the door, his hand never far from his sidearm. What we don't know is whether this harmonization represents a security threat. For all we know, this could be the first stage of some kind of biological takeover. They fear what they don't understand, Lysandra's thoughts whispered in Samira's mind. Just as my people once did. Then we'll help them understand, Samira responded silently, still marveling at this new form of communication. I can assure you, Samira said out loud, that I am still myself. The bond hasn't changed who I am, it's expanded who I am. She could feel Lysandra's approval at her choice of words. The quarantine chamber's door slid open, revealing a tall, distinguished woman in a formal diplomatic uniform. Ambassador Diana Reeves, Earth's chief negotiator with the Valerian delegation, strode in with an expression that suggested she'd aged years in the past few hours. The Valerian High Council is demanding an emergency session, she announced without preamble. They're calling this an unprecedented breach of diplomatic relations. Dr. Hassan, they're specifically demanding your presence to explain your actions. Lysandra's skin darkened with concern. They will try to separate us. The bond is too new, such separation could be dangerous for both of us. Before Samira could respond, her tablet chimed with an incoming transmission. Dr. Raj Patel's face appeared, his expression urgent. Dr. Hassan, you need to see this. I've been analyzing the data from the moment of bonding, comparing it to historical records. There's something everyone's missing. Put it on the main screen, Director Patel ordered. The quarantine chamber's display filled with ancient Valerian texts that Samira and her team had spent years translating, alongside new data from the bonding event. Raj's voice continued, the resonance isn't just some random biological process. According to these texts, it only occurs at crucial moments in Valerian history, when their species needs to adapt or evolve to survive some great challenge. Dr. Rhodes moved closer to the screen, her scientific curiosity overtaking her caution. Are you suggesting this bond was somehow predetermined? That it has some larger purpose? The timing can't be coincidental, Raj continued. Look at the astronomical data. The same stellar alignment that's happening right now is mentioned in these ancient accounts of previous resonance events. Whatever's happening between Dr. Hassan and Lysandra, it's part of something bigger. He's right, Lysandra communicated. But there's more. Show them. Samira felt knowledge that wasn't her own flow through her mind. She stepped forward, her voice taking on the multitonal quality of Valerian speech. The resonance chose this moment because both our species are at a crucial turning point. The Valerians have been facing a genetic decline for generations. Our scientists have hidden it well, but our population is becoming increasingly sterile. Without new genetic diversity, my species faces extinction within 3 generations. The room fell silent. Ambassador Reeves was the first to speak. And humans? What do we gain from this bond? Understanding, Samira answered, feeling Lysandra's memories merge with her own. The Valerians possess knowledge that could help humanity solve its greatest challenges, environmental restoration, disease prevention, even faster-than-light travel. But they've been hesitant to share it, fearing humans weren't ready. This bond proves we are. Security Chief Daller scoffed. Convenient. They need our genetic diversity, and suddenly we're ready for their advanced technology. Not convenient, Lysandra spoke, her voice harmonizing with the subtle changes in her skin color. Necessary. For both our species. A new alarm blared through the facility. Director Patel checked his tablet and paled. A Valerian warship just dropped out of hyperspace in orbit. They're demanding we hand over both Dr. Hassan and Lysandra for biological containment. They fear change, Lysandra's thoughts carried a deep sadness. Just as they feared it when we first discovered signs of intelligence on Earth centuries ago. Samira felt a surge of determination through their bond. Then we'll show them that change isn't something to fear. She turned to address the room. The choice isn't just mine anymore. It's all of ours. We can either embrace this opportunity for genuine cooperation between our species, or we can let fear drive us apart. But know this, what's happened here can't be undone. The only question is whether we'll use it to build bridges or walls. Through their bond, Samira and Lysandra shared a moment of perfect understanding. Whatever came next, they would face it together, not just as individuals, but as living proof that the gap between stars, between species, between different forms of life itself, could be bridged by understanding and trust. The next 48 hours transformed the International Space Research Institute into the center of an interstellar diplomatic crisis. The Valerian warship loomed in orbit like a sword of Damocles, while Earth's own defense forces gathered in response. Inside the facility, Samira and Lysandra found themselves at the heart of intense scientific study and political maneuvering. In the main conference chamber, holographic representatives from both Earth's United Council and the Valerian High Command faced each other across a virtual divide. Samira stood between them, Lysandra at her side, their shared consciousness allowing them to perceive layers of meaning in the proceedings that others missed. "The bond must be severed," declared High Commander VYX, his holographic form shimming with authoritative patterns. "It represents an uncontrolled mutation in our species' natural evolution." "He fears what we represent," Lyssandra's thoughts whispered to Samira. "Not just the bond, but the change it brings to centuries of tradition." Dr. Rhodes stepped forward, her research team's findings displayed behind her. "Severing the bond would kill them both. The neural integration is complete and expanding. Their biological processes have synchronized in ways we're only beginning to understand." More importantly, Ambassador Reeves added, "Any attempt to forcibly separate them would constitute a direct attack on an Earth citizen. We would consider it an act of war." The tension in the room crystallized. Through their bond, Samira and Lysandra sensed the fears, ambitions, and hidden motives swirling through the assembled representatives. But they also sensed something else: curiosity, hope, and a growing recognition of possibility. Samira felt Lysandra's gentle mental nudge. "Show them." Stepping forward, Samira raised her hand. The gesture caught the light strangely, her skin momentarily displaying the same opalescent qualities as Lysandra's. "What you're all failing to see is that the bond is already changing both of us, but not in the ways you fear." She turned to Dr. Rhodes. "Your latest tests show that my DNA remains human, but with enhanced expression of certain genes previously thought dormant. Genes that match specific Valerian sequences. And my own genetic structure," Lysandra added, her voice harmonizing with Samira's, "shows signs of stabilization. The degradation that has plagued our species for generations has begun to reverse." Dr. Raj Patel, who had been quietly analyzing data in the corner, suddenly straightened. "She's right. Look at these comparisons." He projected a new set of diagrams. "The bond isn't just connecting them, it's awakening potential that existed in both species all along. Potential that suggests that we were never meant to remain separate," Samira finished. Through their bond, she and Lysandra moved in perfect synchronization, their movements creating interference patterns in the holographic displays that formed new, complex structures. "According to your own ancient texts," Samira continued, addressing the Valerian High Command, "the resonance occurs to guide your species' evolution. But what if its purpose isn't just to evolve Valerians, but to bring together species that were always meant to find each other?" High Commander VYX's hologram flickered with skepticism. "You suggest this bond is some sort of predetermined destiny?" "Not destiny," Lysandra corrected. "Potential. A path forward for both our species." Security Chief Daller, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "The military implications alone are precisely why this must be handled with diplomatic care," Ambassador Reeves interrupted. "But also why we can't ignore the opportunity it presents." Through their bond, Samira and Lysandra shared a moment of perfect clarity. Together, they projected their shared consciousness into the room's neural interface system. The holographic displays transformed, showing not just data and images, but the actual experience of their bond, the merging of minds, the expansion of perception, the birth of something entirely new yet fundamentally natural. "This is what we offer," they spoke in unison, their voices creating harmonic patterns that resonated through the chamber. "Not the submission of one species to another, but the emergence of something greater than either of us could be alone." Director Patel stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "The question isn't whether to allow this bond, it's already done. The question is whether we'll learn from it, grow from it, or waste our energy fighting against an evolution that's already begun." In orbit, the Valerian warship's energy signature changed. High Commander VYX's hologram displayed patterns of deep contemplation. "You understand," he said slowly, "that if we accept this, nothing can ever be the same." Through their bond, Samira felt Lysandra's surge of hope. That, they thought together, is precisely the point. The chamber fell silent as both sides considered the implications. The path ahead would be challenging, protocols to establish, fears to overcome, centuries of separation to bridge. But in that moment, watching understanding dawn in the eyes of both humans and Valerians, Samira and Lysandra knew they had achieved something profound, the first step toward a future neither species could have reached alone. 1 year after the historic bond between Samira Hassan and Lysandra made interstellar headlines, the International Space Research Institute had transformed. What was once a tightly controlled research facility now served as Earth's first joint human-Valerian cultural exchange center. In the newly constructed resonance wing, Samira stood before a group of potential human-Valerian pairs, their faces reflecting a mixture of hope and apprehension. The bond isn't just about survival or diplomacy, Samira explained, feeling Lysandra's presence harmonize with her thoughts. It's about understanding that evolution doesn't always follow the paths we expect. Through their shared consciousness, Lysandra added her own perspective, her skin shimmering with patterns that the human candidates were only now learning to read. When our species first detected Earth's radio signals centuries ago, we debated for generations whether to make contact. We feared that our differences were too great to overcome. Dr. Rhodes, now heading the Xenogenetic Integration Department, stepped forward with her latest findings displayed on the chamber's neural interface. The data from the past year has been remarkable. Each successful bond has not only stabilized the Valerian genetic degradation but has also awakened dormant potential in human genetics. We're seeing enhanced cognitive abilities, improved cellular regeneration, and the development of entirely new neural pathways. In the observation gallery above, Director Patel stood with Ambassador Reeves and the newly appointed Valerian cultural minister, watching the proceedings. The political battles of the past year had been fierce, but the results were undeniable. Trade agreements between Earth and the Valerian worlds had expanded exponentially, with technological and cultural exchange flowing both ways. They still make some people nervous, Reeves commented, watching a human researcher tentatively touch hands with her Valerian counterpart, the first step in testing compatibility for a potential bond. Change always does, Patel replied. But look at what we've gained. He gestured to the far end of the facility, where a new quantum communications array was being installed under joint human-Valerian supervision. The technology, previously considered too advanced to share, would revolutionize Earth's understanding of spacetime itself. Through their bond, Samira and Lysandra shared a moment of quiet satisfaction. The path hadn't been easy. Conservative factions on both sides had fought against the integration, seeing it as a threat to their species' purity. But the benefits had proven too significant to ignore. They're finally beginning to understand, Lysandra's thoughts whispered through their connection. The universe isn't divided into separate species that must compete or dominate. It's an interconnected web of potential, waiting to be discovered. And we're just the beginning, Samira responded, watching as another pair discovered their compatibility, their auras beginning to synchronize in the characteristic pattern that preceded bonding. The research facility's quantum sensors suddenly registered a spike in activity. Dr. Raj Patel, now leading his own department studying bond phenomena, rushed into the chamber with excitement visible on his face. "You need to see this," he announced, projecting his findings. "We've detected similar genetic markers in other species throughout the galaxy. The potential for bonding might not be limited to just humans and Valerians." The implications rippled through the chamber. Through their bond, Samira and Lysandra shared a vision of the future, a galaxy where artificial boundaries between species dissolved, where evolution took unexpected paths, where difference became strength rather than division. Security Chief Daller, who had remained skeptical throughout the past year, finally cracked a smile. So much for maintaining strict species separation protocols. The protocols were based on fear, Samira said, feeling Lysandra's agreement resonate through their bond. Fear of change, fear of the unknown. But the unknown isn't something to fear, it's something to explore. As the sun set outside the facility's transparent walls, its light refracting through the quantum field generators to create arrays of colors no single species could see alone, Samira and Lysandra moved in perfect synchronization to activate the neural interface. Around them, the chamber filled with holographic representations of possible futures, futures where humanity and Valerians were just the first of many species to discover that evolution's greatest leaps often came from reaching across the void to connect with something different. A year ago, Samira addressed the assembled group. I made a choice that seemed impossible. Today, that choice has opened doors we never knew existed. She felt Lyssandra's consciousness merge more deeply with her own, their combined voice carrying the harmonic resonance that had become the signature of bonded pairs. The question is no longer whether our species can coexist, they spoke together. The question is what wonders we'll discover when we stop seeing our differences as barriers and start seeing them as bridges. Outside the facility, Earth's night sky sparkled with stars that no longer seemed distant and cold, but full of possibility. Somewhere out there, other species waited to be discovered, other bonds waited to be formed, other bridges waited to be built. The future stretched out before them, not as a single path, but as an infinite web of connections waiting to be made. The bond that had begun as one alien's desperate request had become something far more profound, proof that the greatest frontiers weren't the spaces between stars, but the spaces between different forms of life itself. And in crossing those frontiers, both humans and Valerians had discovered that they were never truly separate to begin with.